Hey guys, welcome to session 46 of Java Full Stack Made Easy. So in this session, we will continue with the concept of callback functions that we have discussed into our previous session. A lot of callbacks will definitely be used in real time. So that's why our focus is on callback functions. In next sessions, we will talk about the arrow functions in JavaScript. Even the arrow functions can be passed in as the argument, that means as the callback functions. So previous session, the last thing that we spoke about was about the asynchronous callback function. Fine. So in this session, we will talk about the event callbacks. Callbacks runs only when a user does something, right? So that's what I want to perform now. So let's go ahead and create such a callback. So I'm gonna clean up everything that I have written before. So let's just clean up that, and also for today, once again, we will be creating a repository that is day 46. Okay. So let's create a new repository, call it as day 46. Again, as I keep telling you, it's not necessary that it has to be completed into one day, one entire day. So it can be completed within that as well. So only because I don't want the video lengths to be increased much, that's why I don't put everything into one session. So now callbacks, which we want to run only when a user does something, we want to write that, and such type of callbacks are called as event callbacks. So now what I'm gonna do is I will be simply creating a button, okay, in HTML. After clicking on that particular button, I want to do something. Fine. So a body tag is missing. Let's write that body. And in this body tag, I'm gonna write some HTML code, that is, let's say a button is created, and let's say a button is click, and maybe I can do a on click of this event or something using this. Fine. So I want to create this, and I'll say there is just a button with the ID, because we can also do what get element by ID, right? So let's say button ID is gonna be something like button or something. So I will have a button being created after doing this. So you can see that there's a button being created, and upon this button click, I want to do a callback. So that's what I want to perform. That is kind of a event callback I want to perform. And once again, an internal JavaScript. So let's say document.getElement by ID first, document.getElement by ID, and which element I want to get. The element that I want to get is btn, right? So that's the element I want to get, and then I want to provide an event listener to it. Fine. So that means on a button, if an event occurs, then do this. That's what an event listener does. And what event we are checking for? We are checking for the click event. So if click event occurs, then do whatever I have written here. That means run this particular function. Fine. So I can do a function, and then pass in anything that I want to do here. So let's just do a console log or something, console.log, and I'm gonna say uh, the button clicked. Fine. So this way, what we can do is we can actually create a event callback functions. Fine. So that actually listens to an event. So on a button, it is listening to a click event, and when that click happens, so this particular function should be executed. So let's test that. So I have a button. So there is an cannot read property, bootstrap add event listener. So let's check what is the problem there. So you have a button, and with the ID btn click, that's correct. Add event listener, this is also fine. Click event, yeah, function. Let's check it. So I'll click on this particular button. Uncode type cannot read property of null, reading add event listener. So it is not actually understanding this button ID btn. Looks good. Let's check by putting it into the body so that it listens to that. Yes. So in the previous case, when I was writing into a head tag, it was not actually loading this button. So because it was not loading the button was still null. And because of which it actually gave me that null stuff. So as that error is gone now, because I moved the script into the body itself. So this button gets loaded and then the script gets loaded there. So when I click on this, you can see that the button is clicked. Fine. So this way we can create events callbacks. Fine. So let me just put this into the repository for you. So let's copy this and put it into the repository. By this example, you also understand that the scripts can be added into the head tag, or it can also be added in the body tag as well. So let's call it as event callback. So what the problem if I put it into the header tag is that the script is loaded first and then the button was being created. And since the button is creating after loading the script, what was happening was it was considering the button as null. So here if I put it, the script is loaded. So the moment the script is loaded, so it is considering that the button is still null. So it cannot read the property add event listener of that particular button because the button still does not exist is what it does. Then the button is created. So that's why what I did was I actually moved the script from the head to the body, and because of which now the button gets executed and then the script gets loaded and I can create a event callbacks. Fine. So let's go ahead and create the let's use the array methods with the callbacks. The array methods like what? Maybe concept of maps and all. Fine. So if you remember the streams in JavaScript we used where we were using the concept of map. So once again, I'll clean up everything that I have written. So I guess I have already provided you this into the repository. Oh, not yet. Yeah, I have already given it event callback. So let me just clean up everything that is written here, and we will again go ahead and create more uh, JavaScript for callbacks. So now what I want to do is once again, let's add a script tag. Okay. So now what I want is I have let's create an array. Let's call it as numbers or something, and let's give some values, maybe 1, 3, or maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fine. So I'm gonna give create an array, and then I want to make use of a for each, and we know that the for each takes what? A callback, right? So let's go for numbers dot for each, and then let's create a callback function here. So let's say function and the number, and I want to just console log the same console dot log, and I want to print this num. Okay, so let's just call it as number plus num. Okay, so it's just gonna give me the numbers. Fine. So if only this thing was written, so it just prints us the numbers, right? So this we have already discussed in our previous example as well, where we were taking the array with names. So here it is with the numbers. Now what I want to do is I want to make use of a array function. That is, I want to make use of uh, a map. I can make use of a map or maybe a filter or maybe a for each, right? So if you remember streams, you should be familiar with all these things, map, filters, and for each. So obviously, if we want to process it easily, then we can make use of these array methods with the callbacks. Fine. So we can use it while transforming the data. So what I'm gonna do is I will just say let's try and square the numbers. That is 1 into 1 and 2 into 2, then 3 into 3, 4 into 4, 5 into 5. So I want to get a squared number of the array, each number of this particular thing. Fine. So for that, what I will do is I'll have to make use of a map for that, right? So map is used to transform the data, which we have already discussed in concept of streams in Java. So let's call it as let squared number. I'll be saving it here. Okay. So and I will create a function that actually returns the squared number. So in arrays, we know that numbers dot it contains a map function as well. So I want to perform that map, and map once again takes a callback as its argument. So I'll just pass in this callback as an argument. But what I want is I don't want it to print a console dot log number and number. I want this to actually give me what? the square of this number. So let's call it as squared, and it should be number into number. So I want to perform that. Fine. So console log looks good. Now that's fine. So let's run it and see how the data is mapped. So you can see that the squared number of this one is 149,625. So that way we can perform squared numbers. Fine. I can also do what? Yeah, it's doing its work. So let's just go ahead and return this value and print it on one single line. Let's say our function returns this return squared number, that is number into number, and then I will print the squared number. So yeah, obviously again it is a string plus added that. So let's not do this, let it do this. Okay, and at the end we will do a console.log so that we can print it on one single line. So this will be console.log. Squared number would be what? The squared. Fine. So for every number we will get a squared number of that. Fine. So this way we can make use of what the callbacks with array methods, or array methods with callbacks. So let me put this into the repository. Let's call it as demo2. Array method with callbacks. All right. So now that we have transformed the data by using map, you can also use the filter and the for each and the other array methods. Fine. So let's also, as I told you, while in asynchronous stuff, uh, while retrieving the data from a database might take some time. So that's why we can write the asynchronous type of callbacks and all. So let's try to put it into one real world example, and then we will wind up with the concept of the callbacks. Fine. So let's create one a realistic example, an example that would look realistic. Fine. So first of all, I'll clean up everything that I have written here. So think of this particular application as if like you are getting the data from some database, and you're waiting for the server to give you the data. You're waiting for the database for you to give the data. Fine, because obviously the network calls would take time. If you want to read the data from a database, obviously it takes time. If you want to read a file or maybe whatever, it takes some time. So that's what I am trying to simulate and show you. Fine. So let's call a function as function fetch data. So I want to create a function that takes the data. Fine. And similarly, what I would also want is I want to have a set timeout. Okay. And we know that it takes a function callback. So that is the second thing I want. And I want to tell that the data is being fetched in fetch data. So what I will do is I'll simply say console.log data is being fetched, or fetching user info or maybe user data or anything. So this function will be executed, and this function should wait, right? So if you remember the asynchronous example that I have given you in the previous session. So this takes again a callback function as its argument. So I'll pass this callback function as an argument here. Now a callback is passed, and after that what I have to do is I have to pass in how much time it should wait, right? So I'm just asking it to wait for 2 seconds or maybe some 4 seconds. I want it to wait. And now let's see what we will be writing in this particular function, and let's not give any name to this. So it will be an anonymous callback function, and this function does read some data. So what we will do is we will say this function is reading some data. So let's say let's create a object that it is going to read. Okay, so in JavaScript we can create objects like this, JSON objects with a key value pair. So let's say there's a name of the user which is gonna be Virat, and then I'm gonna also give a role of this particular user that's gonna be a batsman. Fine. So I'm creating a object, and since I'm creating an object, yeah, let's check what is the problem here. Expected. Okay, so let's give both key value pair in this and understand. No, so it should in fact accept this. Let's see what is the issue. So I do have this. Let's save it, and I will store this entire object in something. Let's say I'm storing it into a variable. Let uh, player equals to, yeah. So a player is holding this particular object, and I want to call this, fine, uh, to a callback function. Fine. So let's go ahead and call this callback, and let's say the player is being passed in here. Fine. So let's save it and understand how this is gonna work. And this callback will actually be a part of this fetch data. So let's give this here and try to call the fetch data. Fine. So fetch data I'm calling this function, and that takes a callback function as its argument, right? So when calling this callback, I have to pass in some uh, callback function. So what I'm gonna do is I can create a separate function, or I can directly create a function here. So let's create a function here, a function. Okay, and this function will take one argument, that is, let's say player is an argument, and this function prints me the details of that player, like console.log. The fetched details it has to print me, and that's gonna be what player should give me the player details. Fine. So it will give me player dot and the name of the player plus an empty space. Virat is a player dot role. Fine. So in this example also you got to know how do we create the objects in JavaScript, how do we call the object with its property name in JavaScript. So this, even in future, we will be using a lot of these stuff. Okay, so let's save it and see how this is gonna give us the result. First of all, obviously it is going to run this, right? That is fetch data. It should print us what? Fetching user data, and that's a player, or let's call it as fetching player info. Okay, so that should be printed, and then what should happen is it has to wait for this thing as is waiting, right? It is waiting for 4 seconds to happen, and then there is a fetch data function being called, and this particular fetch data function is just taking the player object that is being passed in here, and it is printing the name of that player and the role of that particular player. Fine. So this callback is being called there, right? So this fetch data is calling the callback function. So let's call that and get the result as well, right? So because that's the callback, right? Let's make it wait for this time. Okay, let's save it and see the result. So it says fetching the player information, and now player Virat is a batsman. So this is actually fetching the data and it is fetching the data. Consider it as maybe it is fetching the data from an API or maybe a database, so it takes time to fetch the data. So as it takes the time to fetch the data, the other function, that is the data received, is actually waiting. Fine. So that's kind of retrieving the data from a database or maybe an API or something. So in such cases also we can make use of callbacks. Fine. So asynchronous stuff is happening here, where the data is being fetched by this particular method, that is set function, and upon fetching the data, it has to pass that data over here, and then that data has to be printed. So this is a realistic example of kind of what I have simulated here, is kind of retrieving the data from a API or something, where the data, where to retrieve the data from an API takes some time, because obviously the database calls or network calls takes time. Fine. So let me copy this, and let's see demo 3, real time use of callbacks. Fine. So since we are yet to know about the arrow functions, I am still uh, not showing you passing in the arrow functions as an argument to our callback functions. So like here, the callback functions are being called like a function player and everything. So it can even be a arrow function that can be called, right? So in our next session we will be talking about what exactly these arrow functions are, and how can we actually pass those arrow functions as an argument to the callback functions, or how do we actually create arrow functions in JavaScript. Okay, so hopefully the concept about the callback functions is pretty much clear to you. In our next session we will be talking about the concept of arrow functions in JavaScript. So till then, if you are liking in the series, please subscribe to the channel, increase the followers, and encourage me to create such contents. Thank you for your patience. Have a nice day.